Today's session is all about the nervous system. And yeah, the nervous system is definitely something that we cannot live without. We're going to go into a few subjects that we can probably live without. As usual, I made a beautiful drawing for you. I feel like every time I make a biology drawing, a biologist somewhere cries. But you get the gist. This is a person. And what we're going to do is we're going to be traveling along this path on the left-hand side. You don't need to necessarily read the words, but we're going to basically be exploring the nervous system from top down. So what you see, this little human right here, and what's being shown in the black part in the center, that's a part of the nervous system called the central nervous system, the CNS. And of course, as it is in the name, it is the centralized part. So it's really the spine and the brain that are connecting, coming together there. You can kind of see it as like the main highway, right? This is where everything all comes together to the brain, is being processed back into the body. But then from the centralized nervous system, it starts branching out into our fingers, into our toes, our legs, our arms from the centralized nervous system. This is called the peripheral nervous system. So these are like country roads. If you were to have the main highway in the center, you would go off and branch off in these country roads. So if damage occurs there, it's not as problematic as when damage, of course, occurs in the central nervous system. Then the peripheral nervous system also branches off into two directions, in two ways of experiencing life. And it's very accurate to start comparing this to inputs and outputs. So we have the sensory division. The sensory division is, of course, everything to do with our senses. So the way that my voice right now travels into your ears, it's going through one of the senses. The way that you feel the clothes touching your skin, if you're wearing clothes, that's also part of the sensory division. The moment that I pick up my teacup and I feel that it's a little bit too hot, perhaps, to hold. These are a part of the senses, but they're coming in. I get all these senses coming in from the outside to the inside, right? And then we have the motor division. And 2 sessions ago, we talked about the motoric part of the brain. So how thoughts are processed and then going into movement. And the motoric division is part of the execution of that movement. So if you are deciding to go to dance, the motoric division makes that you ultimately move, right? And then we're gonna branch off a little bit further. And this is also going to be our end stop and our entrance into our meditation. The motor division branches off into the somatic, which often is connected more to our voluntary movements. So like I said, when you decide to go dance, then you boogie. But there's also the opposite of that, which is called the autonomic nervous system. And this can also be named the involuntary division. And the involuntary decision is best explained that it arranges so many of the things that we are actually quite happy not to be thinking about. Like, of course, the heartbeat that keeps us going, the way that our body balances out temperature, our oxygen intake, our blood pressure, our heat and temperature regulation. A lot of topics that we also, of course, discussed in last week's session in the brainstem. And this part is very interesting because even though it's called involuntary, we can make it more conscious. And it is actually something that is quite important in modern day society. You can compare this involuntary part of the system to our nervous system and parts of our brain that we evolved very, very early on when we were still living in huts. And back then, going into fight or flight, because that's also part of the autonomic nervous system, going into fight or flight when you meet a tiger is of course very important that you are able to respond immediately. I'm getting a bit ahead of myself because the autonomic nervous system, it has two ways of balancing itself out. It basically has two modes of operating. So the first mode is the fight or flight mode that I just talked about, where you see a tiger, you either run for it or you freeze. Fight or flight or freeze is also called. But then there's also another way that our nervous system automatically operates to balance itself out once we are far away from the tiger and we are no longer in danger. And this is called the state of rest and digest, also called the parasympathetic nervous system. And just like how the brain levels itself out after periods of stress through hormones with dopamine and oxytocin, the nervous system also balances itself out when it's been in a state of fight or flight by going into that other state of rest and digest. The thing is with our current society that so many of us are in this constant mode of fight or flight. And this has a lot to do with our, well, I don't want to be mean to it, but our brain and our nervous system that are actually not as developed to the modern day life, and especially in the information age as we would like it to be. And I think also the current pressure that we experience a lot through, for example, social media, but also with work and study and student debts, maybe even, our fight or flight mode is very quickly activated, and it becomes more and more difficult for the opposite end of that nervous system that is supposed to balance it out to balance it out, to kind of find equilibrium again, homeostasis, this is also called in biology. And so you can kind of imagine if you're at work and you have a deadline. I mean, just the word deadline, right? The word deadline, it causes a lot of stress. If we don't make that deadline, we might get fired, for example. This is not something that we often consciously think, but there's this pressure to perform, right? Loneliness can also deeply activate this sympathetic nervous system, this fight or flight mode, because we have this natural need to be surrounded by people. So if we are by ourselves a lot and we're not conscious of it, it can actually induce this state of stress. So these are the modes that we're going to be working with today with our meditation, because there is actually a way that we can guide ourselves consciously to find equilibrium again if we take the time, if we take a moment. And that's exactly what you are doing right now. You're taking a moment to balance yourself out. Okay, so let's dive into the autonomic nervous system and the balancing out of fight and flight or rest and digest. We're going to be going into a yogic exercise. This was developed in the 15th century, and it's called Nadi Shodhana. And nadis is something that you might have heard before in your yoga class. Nadis are basically like energetic pathways that we have running all throughout our body. And we have tens of thousands of them. And you can kind of compare it to like the acupuncture highways that they use in Chinese medicine as well. And Shodhana means cleansing. So Nadi Shodhana means cleansing of the energetic pathways. And we have this really amazing system right in our nose. Right as you are sitting here watching this at this moment, there's a place within your nostrils that you are breathing through more dominantly. So multiple times a day, this is not for everyone, but this happens to a lot of us. We are switching through which nostril we are breathing more powerfully, basically. And so it is said that the left hemisphere, so if we're breathing more currently through our left nostril, you can also feel it by, for example, placing your hand below your nostrils and exhaling out and feeling if there's more air coming out of the right or more coming out of the left. If you are breathing more through your left nostril, you are more in your moon energy. This is sometimes compared also to feminine energy, but that's a bit out of date. It's more the receiving end. It's more the, yeah, you can even say the more rest and digest state of our nervous system. So we are more relaxed generally when we are breathing through our left nostril. And if we are breathing more throughout our right nostril, then we are more often in the state of fight or flight. Well, yeah, fight or flight. It's more an activated state. It's also called the sun energy. So on the right side, we have the sun energy. On the left side, we have the moon energy. And so it's very interesting also to notice, for example, that when you wake up, to check if you're still feeling, for example, really tired, are you still breathing more predominantly through the left nostril? Or are you already breathing more towards the right and you are also feeling more energized and ready to wake up? Yeah, this is something also that I feel is important to mention, is that fight and flight, the system of being in fight or flight is not always bad. It is bad when we are spending almost all of our time in fight or flight, but it's also a very natural way of our nervous system to be activated and moving. So we also, of course, do need it, this activation. So if you are not able to really sense already through which nostril currently you are breathing more predominantly throughout, what is a nice way to check it as well, you probably don't have it at hand, is to have a mirror and to breathe out on that mirror to see where there's more air flowing out. And especially after you've practiced this breath that we're about to do, you'll probably be also able to sense it more and more as you go along. So the Nadi Shodhana breath, Dina, stop it. The Nadi Shodhana breath. Okay, so we're going to go into kind of a special hand gesture that's going to help us to balance out both worlds, to balance out our nervous system and our breath. We're going to be folding our pinky finger and our ring finger into the center of our right hand. It's kind of looking like this. Okay. Then we're going to be placing our index finger and our middle finger into the center of our eyebrows, right between our eyebrows, right here. And we're slightly now unfolding our ring finger and our pinky finger. And we're going to be breathing in through the left nostril while we use our thumb to close off the right nostril. So breathing in like this. Then when we are on top of our breath, we use our ring finger and our pinky to close off the left nostril, kind of looking like, I don't know if I can show you like this. And then we breathe out through the right nostril as we keep the left nostril closed. Okay. And then after we've breathed out, after we've exhaled through the right nostril, we're keeping the left nostril closed for a moment longer as we also inhale through the right nostril. Then closing off the right nostril with our thumb and then exhaling out through the left nostril. So in the beginning, you're probably going to be a bit like, how does it work? But I'm going to guide you all the way through it. And even just doing this a few rounds can majorly balance out our nervous system. And it's also been said to help with asthma and and other sensitivities around breathing. Lowers blood pressure, all good things. So let's do it together, okay? So we begin by closing off our right nostril with our thumb and breathing in through the left nostril. Switching fingers, so putting the left ring finger on the left nostril, or the right, sorry, and exhaling out through the right nostril. Inhaling through the right nostril, keeping the left one closed. Closing the right nostril and exhaling out through the left. Inhaling back up through the left, keeping the right closed, and then switching fingers, closing the left nostril and exhaling out through the right. Inhaling through the right, closing the right nostril, exhaling out through the left nostril. Inhaling through the left nostril, closing off the left nostril and exhaling out through the right. Inhaling through the right nostril, exhaling out through the left nostril, closing off the right. Inhaling in through the left nostril, closing off the right still. And exhaling out through the right nostril. Inhaling in the right nostril, closing off the right, exhaling out through the left. We're just going to do this 3 more rounds. Stay with it. Inhaling through the left, closing off the right still. And closing off the left, exhaling out to the right. Inhaling in through the right nostril, closing off the right, exhaling out through the left. Inhaling through the left nostril, closing off the left nostril and exhaling out through the right. Inhaling through the right nostril still, closing off the right and exhaling out through the left. Final one, inhaling through the left, closing off the left nostril and exhaling out through the right. Inhaling through the right nostril, closing off the left, and closing off the right and exhaling out through the left nostril. And then releasing the hands, letting it land on your legs, letting them rest. And if you haven't closed your eyes, then please do so now. And you may hear or observe how the breath feels moving through your nostrils and into your body. Noticing perhaps that you feel a little bit more landed, or maybe a bit more confused. But once you get the hang of it, you can't unlearn it, like riding a bicycle. And a wonderful quick fix for, again, balancing out the nervous system when we are too much in one state or the other. And as you experience yourself breathing, in the space in which you sit. With hopefully a little bit more of a balanced out nervous system. Let's take a moment to appreciate that part of our body. Starting from the brain, moving into the spine and branching out to every single corner of the physical body that we are inhabiting. Perhaps even allowing ourselves to feel quite wondrous about this complex and powerful system that we carry within us. There is still a little bit of debate in the scientific community about this, but there's a big group that is arguing that all the nerve cells, all the cells that transport back and forth the information that our body needs to interpret our reality, all these nerve cells are actually irreplaceable. They are irreplaceable, and there are actually all these cells are cells that we were born with. So, whereas a lot of other cells, a lot of other tissue in our body is renewed, sometimes over the space of days, months, or years, our nerve cells and this amazing communication is something that we are born with and that cannot be replaced. And from this standpoint of gratitude, I thank you for showing up today, for exploring your nervous system, this great messenger, exploring your breath, the moon and the sun. And I look forward to our next session together, in which we will be exploring the lungs. And as always, if you feel like staying longer in this meditation, then please do so. And for now, I wish you a beautiful day up ahead. If you enjoyed this eccentric journey, then please take a moment to like or share this episode, whatever feels right for you to do on the platform that you're tuning in from, because it actually helps greatly with the growth and the creation of this meditation channel. Thank you.